joining us, and will join us as we go. I'm sure people will be in and out, and I'll be letting people in. So if I look a little distracted, that's what I'm doing. This is our first coaches clinic we've had through Next Play. It was our vision with this company in our second year to have a coaches clinic. We had to get a little creative with everything going on right now, but I want to thank our speakers for joining us. They're doing this for free, and I really appreciate their time tonight. Got a great lineup. They're going to be talking about the mental aspect of sports and leadership. That's the foundation of our Next Play Academy. We want to bring balance to mind, body, and craft. We've seen a lot of online clinics advertised going on right now. Some great things, installing 1-3-1 defenses and flow offense, paper practice drills, a lot of that kind of stuff. But what we really haven't seen is anything that we're offering here. So, again, we have something unique here to bring to the table. We offer a lot of different services. If anybody viewing wants to check out our website, we have some things we feel like we can offer too. But ultimately, we're here to help people. We want to help athletes and coaches develop the tools necessary to succeed on and off the court or field or pitch or whatever you want to call it. So right now, we feel there's no more appropriate time than ever to be focusing on the mental aspects of sport. With everything shut down, there's a lot of opportunities right now. These are tough times, and they require a lot of discipline to improve. Gyms closed and social distancing and isolation. We got to take what's available to us and make us tougher to get us through this tough time. So that's what we're here to do tonight. And again, we have a great lineup for you. The way this is going to work, we're going to introduce the speakers, and then they're going to monologue on a topic that's near and dear to their heart for about 10 minutes or so. I'll be taking notes myself. I hope you'll do the same, because I think we're going to learn a lot tonight. And then after about 5 minutes or so, we're going to allow people to ask questions if they'd like to. You can go into the chat option at the bottom of your screen. You can click my name, Ken Calvi, and ask questions, and I can feed those to the speakers. George and I will be asking some questions ourselves. And that's pretty much it. If you're not a speaker, we ask that you do mute your volume, and I can unmute and mute people too as the host. We ask that you keep your video off if you're not a speaker that we've invited as well, just to make it a little easier on me. My name is Kenny Calvi. I'm co-founder of Next Play Academy. I'm currently a principal at St. Cecilia School in Independence, Kentucky. Was formerly the basketball coach at Newport Catholic. So that's kind of my basic background. George, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, to kind of talk about what Kenny was saying as well too. Well, first, my name is George Stahl. I also coached the girls varsity basketball team in New Calf for 7 years, I think it was. And Kenny and I got this together. We just had our 1-year anniversary with it here in March. So we're excited to have everybody. We chose the name Next Play Academy, for a reason. And, we kind of, like that name from the start. And it's just because, things happen that might go your way, might not go your way, on the court, off the court, on the field, off the field, whatever it may be. And you can learn from it, and you can worry about the next play, so to speak. And with our lineup tonight, we got a great group of guys in here talking about things that, like Kenny said, are near and dear to their hearts and our hearts, and we got a good lineup for everybody. So we're excited, and I'm, like Kenny said, I'm taking some notes as well too. I think we're all here to learn, and lifelong learners, and that's what it's about. Don't be stagnant. Just keep on trying to learn as much as you can. And that's why we're here, to help anybody and everybody with as much as they can. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, so if you want more information on us, you can visit our website, nextplayacademy.com. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, all those young people places. So check those out if you get an opportunity. But that's enough of us. We want to hear from our speakers. We're going to start with Coach Kevin Listerman from Highlands High School. Coach, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us on. And Kenny, George, I want to just tell you, I really love the vision that you guys have for Next Play. When you guys started this a year ago, I don't know that you hit a bigger fan for wanting to see this thing take off for you guys. And I think you've got a great direction and a great vision with it, and excited for what we've got tonight and the different things that you guys have already done.
Yeah, we appreciate that. So let me read a little bio on Coach Listerman here so everybody has some background on you. I know it's hard to talk about yourself. So Coach has been at Highlands High School since 2013-14 in Fort Thomas, Kentucky. He's been the boys varsity basketball coach there, also a biology teacher. Notable basketball career began as a student athlete where he appeared in 4 NCAA Division II basketball tournaments. I was there, Coach. I was just a youngling, but played in 2 NCAA national championship games. Coach has held the position of assistant basketball coach at Northern Kentucky University and has coached at the varsity level at Bellevue, Boone County, Covington Catholic, Coleraine High School. He also was the head coach of a minor league basketball team. I didn't know this, Coach. In the KVDL, where he was named Coach of the Year in 2008. So Coach saw a lot of success this past season, led the Bluebirds to a district championship and an appearance in the 9th region finals. Congratulations on that, Coach. And you're here to talk about your 212 mentality and Next Play as well. So I'll let you have the floor.
Tell you what, Coach Calvi, you did some homework there to bring up the KVDL. That'll have to be a different podcast.
Yeah.
Talking about semi-pro, pseudo-professional basketball. But yes, thanks for having me. And our 212 mentality is something that I sort of stumbled upon in my third year at Highlands. We were really looking for a way to create an identity and some excitement around our program. We hadn't had a lot of success in recent history, and more than anything, I wanted our kids to really start to embrace the process of becoming better. And wins and losses are secondary in my mind to doing the right things the right way. And so what I found is it was a book by Sam Parker, and the whole vision revolves around the idea of water turning into steam, which as a science teacher, it fit perfectly with my personality. And at 211 degrees, you've just got very hot water. But when you get to 212, water starts turning into steam. And then steam, you can use it to do lots of different things. You drive a locomotive, you can get it to get reactions to occur. You can use it to do all sorts of things, but it has to get to 212. And so that's the whole idea behind it. The idea wasn't mine originally, but it was certainly something, as coaches, you find things that work and fit. And so we took it and adopted it, and then we added to it. And, one of the things that we've done over the last several years is I like to say that in order to get to 212, obviously you've got to apply heat, but you also got to apply pressure, and what that looks like, whether it's practice, whether it's games, situations, you have to be ready to embrace that heat and take the pressure. And then I talk to my guys about really the willingness to be changed. The great teams, the great players, not only know that they're good, but they want to become better. And so you have to want to be changed, just like water going from the liquid state to a gaseous state. It doesn't change who you are, but it changes the way you look and the way you act and the way you approach things. And one of the other things, as I was thinking about it, is it's more free. Water in a liquid state, the molecules are a lot closer together. When it's in a gaseous state, you're more free, which means you've got more responsibility. You have to take care of more things, but you're also freed up to do a lot of other things. And ultimately, that willingness to be changed has to come from within. So we start every practice, every team meeting with us breaking it down, and we say 212, turn it up. And we really just try to ingrain that into our guys about how important it is to find that one little degree difference every single day that we go on the floor, every time we leave a timeout. And, I didn't think some years you feel like, it's just a tagline. And I didn't want it to be that. And it has really grown over the last several years to where it's a very much a cultural thing for not only our program, but it's actually kind of bled out into the school as well, which is really neat to see. So one of the things that we had to do then is, how do we measure it? How do we determine whether or not we've reached 212? And so as I was thinking about it and I was doing some reading, I came across the creed for the Navy SEALs. And I was reading, I was like, you know what, that's really what I want. I don't want a bunch of team rules. I don't want a bunch of do's and don'ts. I want a creed. I want something that we believe in and day out, and that we can look at the end of a practice. We can look at the end of a film session and say, did we get there today? And so that's what we came up with. And it's pretty simple. I mean, it's three prongs that we look at. And the first one is give your absolute best at all times. Whether that's in the classroom, whether that's on a practice field, or, you're running a sprint, are you giving it your absolute best? And then the second one was to add value to your teammates and your family and your friends. And I asked the kids this question: if you weren't here at practice today, would anybody care? If you weren't in school today, would anybody notice and would anybody care that you weren't there? Not because they missed, oh yeah, you're not in that seat, but because deep down you've added something to their lives. And that's a really hard question to think about for a teenager. But if you look at, successful people, they're successful because they're adding value to the lives of those around them every single day. And then the last part was to be a man of character and integrity, who's committed to the process until there's no time left. And that, to me, is probably the ultimate measure. Wins and losses come, but it's the process of becoming good to great every single day that you're after, and to stay committed to it. It's really easy. You can start a diet. You can start an exercise program. You could say, I want to be a good player. But to be committed to it day after day after day after day, and then see the results, I think is really, really important. So that's really where it came from. And that's how we measure it. And every single day our kids have bought into it. And that's kind of the neat thing for me to step back and to see our teams take ownership of that mentality. And we try to put it in there. We go on Christmas tournaments, and if somebody gets room 212, that's a big deal. We don't request it, but that's a big deal. Or, if we start a Saturday practice and we finish at 212, that's another big deal. So it's incredible how many times you see that number pop up once you're kind of aware of that thing. So it's been a great thing. It's our guys have, like I said, it's created a culture for us. It's given us an identity. And, I can't take credit for the original idea, but it has really given us a place to bond and a place to springboard from.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, adaptation's a new originality, that's for sure. So, yeah. So you kind of came in the first couple of years, got through some challenges. When did you see your teams kind of start to break through? And not necessarily maybe with results and wins, but is there anything that stuck out to you where you thought, man, we're starting to get it here? Could have 12 or anything else.
I would say it was probably year 4 or year 5. And a lot of that is then those kids had been around me, 3 and 4 and 5 years, and they understood what my expectations were. They understood that, I want them to play multiple sports because I think that's important for kids. But that to be successful, you have to put the time in. And then, the focus shifted, year 1 as a young coach and new coach, you want those tangible wins, and sometimes they come and sometimes they don't. And so then, really I had to shift my focus is, okay, look, we're not built yet to be a 20-win team, but how do we walk in on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and feel good that we're making progress as individuals and as a team? And I really felt like year 4, year 5, we really started to make some progress. And then, the last 2 years we've had 20 wins and 28 wins. And a lot of that is because those kids, they've been in the program since they've experienced 212 since they've been in the 6th grade, and they understand what that means.
Hey, Coach, I got a quick question for you. Is there anything that you know now that you wish that you knew when you were a high school player or in college? Given that you played at NKU and everything, had a great collegiate career. Drawing back on that experience, anything that you wish that you knew then that you wish that you do know now as a coach?
I would have loved to play for a guy like me that told me to shoot it more. The game has evolved. I mean, and I was very fortunate back when I was in college to play with some tremendous shooters. So, my job was pretty easy. But I think just kind of the understanding of the game that that you don't have to necessarily win it in the first quarter, that there's much more of a process to it. But then that was one of the things that for me was sort of an advantage, was I was going hard all the time, start to finish, and mentally being able to relax and say, okay, look, one mistake isn't a big deal. 2 mistakes isn't a big deal. It's about getting to the next play and understanding the big picture things. Like, we do things in a certain way because we want to wear teams down or that sort of stuff. And that's probably part of it. The other thing that I would probably tell myself as a young player is to have more fun. It's hard to tell a young person because you're ultra competitive and winning is fun. And the guys that you get to do it with, those 4 years, whether it's high school or college, man, to just really savor that. The guys that I played with, it was unique because of the bond that we've had as a group. 25 years later, we still get texts and are on text chains, and guys are still ragging on each other. And, you were part of each other's weddings and, all of those things. To really be able to enjoy those moments, I think is hard for young people to understand.
All right, Coach, we got a minute or two here, but I noticed you sent us over something before, just real quick. You referred to it looked like a Mark Batterson book.
Yeah.
Any book recommendations you have for anybody?
Oh, man.
As leaders go and
I tell you what, I do a lot of reading, and this time I've actually done a lot more. Mark Batterson's one of my favorites. In the pit with the lion on a snowy day, and then the following one about chasing lions. And that's one that I use all the time with our guys that, look, we're going to go out and I want guys that chase lions. And it's about a story from the Bible, Benaiah, who was in charge of King David's army. And Benaiah got that position because he was out in the woods one day or in the jungle, heard the lion roar, and instead of running away, he chased it down, climbed in the pit, and killed it. And the idea is that you can't be afraid of your dreams. You can't be afraid of going places where you're uncomfortable. And, yeah, there are times where you're going to climb in that pit and the lion's going to get the better of you. But the important thing is we're going to get in the pit tomorrow, and we're going to get in the pit the next day. And one of these days we're going to come out with a big old lion skin, and we're going to tack it to the wall, and we're going to be awfully proud of it. And, I think it's a mentality, and it's hard for people to embrace it because of all the uncomfortableness that goes with it. And so he's one of my all-time favorite authors. Josh Medcalf is another one. He does Chop Wood, Carry Water, and Pound the Stone, which are 2 awesome books about the process and how important process is to being successful. One of the other guys that I really like is a guy by the name of Simon Sinek, who did the one I read from him was Leaders Eat Last. And he was also the one that started Start With Why. When people understand why you're doing things and what you want out of them, it's much easier for them to buy in. And I tell you, the first one I read was actually in college. The 2 that I read, I read 2 coaching books. I read Phil Jackson's Sacred Hoops. And I know with all the stuff that's going on with the Last Dance, he was a big Zen Buddhist. And actually that really helped me as a player to calm my mind down in big time games, and the ability of just being able to do that exercise. And then the other one was Pat Riley. He wrote one called The Winner Within, which is he wrote it, I think, with it when they won the first championship, maybe with the Miami Heat, or it might even have been earlier. And just all the things that he had put in there. So, you know, I started doing this stuff when I was in college to help me as a player, and it's continued on since I've been a coach. So those are some of the really good ones that are out there, and I keep finding more and more.
Yeah, those are all great authors. I do have to say, I saw you play. I don't know if you played with a Zen-like attitude, but you're all over the place. But
it was Zen on the inside.
Yeah, that's important. So, well, thanks, Coach. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your insight, and for being here tonight. So,
I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing from the other coaches, and thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks,
A few reminders. If you're not a speaker or speaking at the time, if you don't mind muting, and that'll help me out a little bit. Also, if you want to ask any questions to any speakers, feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom. Also, again, just a reminder, if you want to check out anything we have to offer as far as, you know, we have articles, videos we've made, that sort of stuff. We have some great interviews, including one with head coach John Brandon from Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati, on our website. So check those out. A lot of things on leadership, and our next speaker here, Dr. Brett Burton from Xavier University. I really can't think of a better person to speak on this subject than him. He's a professor in the Department of Leadership Studies and Human Resource Development at Xavier University. Before coming to the Tri-State, he was a school administrator for nearly 20 years in West Aurora and Oswego. Dr. Burton, you can tell me if I'm saying that wrong. School districts. He also has been an athletic director, a coach, and teacher. He earned his doctorate degree from Northern Illinois University, during which he wrote his dissertation on a quantitative analysis of resiliency and academic achievement among multicultural students in urban high schools. So very pleased to have Dr. Burton here tonight to talk about leadership. Dr. Burton, I think you're on mute, but I'm trying to get you off of there. You there?
How we doing? You got me now?
Got you now. So thanks.
All right.
Doctor.
No, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. A pleasure listening to Coach Listerman. Appreciate mentioning that last dance with Michael Jordan, because I remember those the Jordan era, growing up right outside Chicago and buying those $100 shoes for the first time back in the 80s, and with my paper route money. And you know, how it was a big deal at that time in junior high school. I remember thinking I was a basketball player. I should have known better. I had a father who was like 5'9", and, you know, mother that was about 5'5". So there wasn't in the cards in that area of West Aurora, the home of Kenny Battle, you know, former Flying Illini guy. So really a deep tradition of basketball. So I feel honored to be around a bunch of basketball coaches this evening as a former football, baseball guy. But Kenny, thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about resiliency and leadership in general. And I don't think it's what a great opportunity to kind of discuss some of the challenges we're currently facing in this climate. You know, with everything with the pandemic and everyone Zooming and experiencing some Zoom fatigue, I'd like to call it. So yeah, I just wanted to share a few things. Just, you know, one thing I realized, you know, as a former player and then a collegiate player, then a person became a teacher working with young people and coaching ball and of all different levels, from the junior high school to varsity football and some baseball. And that is that, boy, hard times are definitely going to happen in life, right? But you know, tough people usually make it out okay, which was kind of like the catalyst with my study with resiliency. So I looked at some characteristics. One thing that I was always compelled to find out, dealing with kids that came from hard places, was why do some kids overcome adversity and others do not? So it's kind of like my compelling question and the catalyst for some of the research I did when I was at NIU and I still delve into today. And there were certain characteristics and traits with the students that I found with my research. And there's a framework for a gentleman by the name of Dr. Henry Truba that worked with bilingual students. Basically, they were kids that their parents were migrant farmers. And so, they didn't speak English. They were mostly Hispanic, Latino, and spoke the Spanish language. But a lot of these kids that he studied were very successful in school. And so he came up with a framework, which I kind of applied, which I applied to more of the suburban, urban areas of 5-6 schools outside of Chicago, looking at these characteristics. And he came up with 6 main points. One is being that kids that are successful, he deemed success as kids that were showing up to school every day, turning in their work, had GPAs that were 3.0 or higher. They may have had adversity at home because their parents were at home, so they were taking care of young children or siblings rather, and so they had a lot of challenges in their life personally. And the first trait that he found was that these kids that were resilient basically were able to make intelligent plans for the sake of pursuing future goals. So these kids had goals for themselves in life of going to college, graduating from college, contributing back to their communities in some capacity, either as an attorney, a doctor, a teacher. So they staved off a lot of those temptations that exist for a lot of our young people today because of this intelligent plan that they established for themselves. The second one was their willingness to learn the language and culture of school. So a lot of these kids were bicultural, and not only were they bilingual, but they were bicultural. And so they looked at, the school environment as having its own separate culture, but these kids are adaptable. And, I think it applies to sports too, because, you take kids that come from, especially in these travel programs and maybe they're coached by one of their parents or someone that's close to them. And so they're, maybe the star on the team and, so they're used to being the guy. And, when you're coming into, when you're entering high school and even, transitioning into college, like there's a certain culture that exists, on these teams and universities or high schools that kids have to adapt. And it's not like what we used to call daddy ball, where, like your son, you're the star of the team and you're the pitcher and the shortstop, but you have to adapt to a new culture. But in this framework, that was another resilient characteristic of these students, was that they were able to learn a new culture. The other thing was that their ability to basically use and communicate with others, like their ability to communicate with things that they were in need of, or also communicate with others in the sense of able to support other students and family members. That was another characteristic. The fourth one was that their ability was to appreciate their family and receive support from their family during a crisis. What a better time right now, right? We're living in crisis times where, students are not able to graduate, participate in commencement, finish their season, their senior seasons athletically, proms and band concerts. You have all these great events at the end of the year that, have been stripped away from kids. It's a crisis time, but, these kids that are resilient are able to lean on their family members and have those conversations to help them process. The other thing was their loyalty to school and family as well. The students made a commitment to be great students, and they couldn't have done that without the support of their teachers. So that was another facet of this framework, was that they had a teacher that was involved with them. Maybe not necessarily, their instructor, but more or less like a mentor that could advise them when they were dealing with some challenges. And the sixth one, which is probably the most important from my perspective, is their belief in a higher power or God. A lot of these kids were very spiritual, had spiritual strength that was tied to their culture and their values. And that's what really was able to help carry them through a lot of these tough and challenging times. And this was research I did 5 years ago, which kind of, I was finishing a book called Anti-Fragility by Dr. Nassim Taleb is his name, who takes like resiliency to another level with anti-fragility, in a sense that when you're resilient, a lot of times you're able to take punches and deal with adversity and kind of like at least, continue to show up and do the things you need to do to to accomplish goals. When you're anti-fragile, however, it's another level of resiliency. If we were to have different levels of it or a hierarchy, when you're anti-fragile, you're able to take these tough, difficult challenges and not only stand and take it and continue to progress, but you're able to take it to another level and improve even more so. And I think in these times, with things that we're experiencing in this country and, using the vehicle of athletics, like teaching kids, to be anti-fragile and a coach in an anti-fragile way and not leveling down expectations, but it's only going to help them thrive and compete, in this current climate. So that was kind of like the research, my research study and analysis that I think really helped my development and growth, not only as a school principal, but as a father and also as a professor. Because we all experience tough times, but it's how we respond to them is what's the difference.
For sure. And what I'm hearing from you too, you talked about, your study is they're able to relate with people within their culture, their teacher, their family, their relationship with God. Do you think that's kind of the cornerstone of leadership and resiliency, is just having relationships with others?
It all starts with relationships, as we know. I mean, we're sitting with a room or a Zoom of coaches, I should say, right? Like if you can't, if you don't have your student athletes buy in, and you have to show people that you care about them before they're gonna, buy into your philosophy, your culture, right? And developing those relationships are critical. I wouldn't be sitting here today, at Xavier or having experiences that I've had without great coaches that were relatable. Even to this day, I would say my close friends are guys I either played with, coached with, or I'm at the age of 48 now that I've coached that are, young fathers and teachers and coaches themselves that I'm still in contact with today back in Illinois. And to see them thrive, relationships and being relatable, definitely paramount to success.
For sure.
Hey, Doctor, there's one thing we talked about yesterday. We talked about the importance of being intentional of what do you want to do and then having the discipline to do that. Can you kind of speak on that? Because I think that's so important for anybody, not just athletes, coaches. It's, for everybody. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Sure. I think just, the power of intent when you're establishing goals and you're kind of projecting your future as a young person, it starts with intent and what direction you want to head in life, and if you want to achieve your goals, starting with intention and then also having the discipline to kind of stave off other obstacles or temptations, in this day and age that you may endure or have to, may experience or entice you to kind of go off a different direction. And that's the interesting thing, like where I'm from, we had some great, just phenomenal athletes, guys that played professional baseball. We had a kid, he was across the river, Ryan Boatwright, that played at UConn, won a national championship. We had all these talented, athletes, and for every like Ryan Boatwright or Kenny Battle or Rich Beck or these pro athletes that came out of our area, there were probably 10 more just like them that could not, did not have the intent to stay the course in life. And that was the difference with these gentlemen, why they were successful, not only in athletics, but in life, was that, they had intent to, to commit, to buy into what, their coaches, to foster their relationships with their community, their parents, or grandparents, and it all began just with that process of where they saw them, where they could project out their lives, going. So in a nutshell, that's kind of my thought on that, George.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're trying to do here too, is bring that mental aspect of the game, so those kids realize it maybe at a younger age. So
yeah, and I think just you were mentioning, Coach Listerman talked about books. The Little Book of Talent by Daniel Coyle, great book for kids to read. I think it's got like 52 different tips in there. how to become better, either academically or athletically. I recommend every student athlete have that book, book on their shelf and they refer to it. I think Duhigg's work on habits, creating good habits, having a consistent, that regimen in life, as far as being a student athlete too, that you can't get away from that, especially at the higher levels of college sports. So those are just two recommendations, and I always throw the third one, which is Mindset by Dr. Dweck. That growth fixed mindset's paramount, to a person's growth and development. So those are my recommendations as far as books are concerned.
Yeah, again, all great authors. Actually, a lot of what you're talking about with resiliency reminds me a lot of Coyle's Talent Code, just springboard effect and that sort of thing. So
yeah, great book.
Yeah.
So no, but thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being part of this. Good luck with everything. I know you got a lot going on, and hopefully I'll see you.
I'm jumping to another Zoom, so thanks a lot, gentlemen. Great show, and thanks for the invite.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being with us.
All right, take care, guys. Thank you.
We'll see you.
See ya.
A few reminders, everybody else. Again, that's joining us. We appreciate you being here, and if you have any suggestions for questions, feel free to throw those in the chat option at the bottom. Any coaches viewing tonight, please check out our website. We have a lot to offer. We do off the court classroom sessions with teams. This is one of our favorite things to do. We've done a few of these, and we call the coach before and tailor the session and try to make it unique to your team. And we come in and do some interactive classroom work with them. So it's a lot of fun. We've gotten great feedback on it. So any coaches interested in that, feel free to contact us. So I'm going to let George introduce our next speaker. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, so next we got the head coach at Thomas More, their men's basketball team, Justin Ray. A few things about Justin here. He played Division II basketball at Christian Brothers in Memphis, Tennessee. He coached there for a little bit, and then he went on to be a grad assistant at Wright State. And then he was an assistant Mount St. Joe's for, I believe it was 7 years. And then and now the past couple of seasons he's been at Thomas More. And as probably anybody watching knows, Thomas More is just in the midst of switching from Division III to NAIA. And this year, I know that their expectation, at least the outside expectation, wasn't for them to do, that great. They were picked to finish last in their conference this year. But they end up finishing third in their conference. They had an outstanding year, and then during that season, they also beat Georgetown, the #1 ranked team in the whole entire nation, on their home court, on Georgetown's home court as well too. So they've had a great year this year, and I know Coach also received the Mid-South Coach of the Year for their conference. So he had a great year. Their team had a great year, and I know he's going to provide some insight for everybody on the mentality of confidence. So, Coach, we're happy to hear you. Have you here, man. And the floor is yours. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks, George. Want to thank Ken and George, both of you, for allowing me to be a part of this. George, you and I spoke yesterday, and like Coach Listerman said, I think you guys have got something. I like the direction that you guys are going. So many times, you talk about, the strength of your body and lifting and doing all those things, working on your skills, and everybody always talks about that stuff. But I think you guys have got something, talking about the mindset and having the right mentality. And we see it every year. Somebody doesn't make it. They've got all the tools. They've physically they're ready to go. Skill wise, they're as good as anybody, and they've got the wrong mentality, and they'll either never be as good or they won't make it at all. So I think that you guys are on to something, and happy for the growth that you guys have had, and congrats on your 1 year anniversary thus far. So happy to be a part of this, but Dr. Burton and Coach Listerman both said a bunch of things that, I think are really important and definitely contributed to the year that we had. When we went from Division III to NAIA, and Thomas More, being Thomas More, and the mentality that Terry Connor has, and with what the women's basketball team's been doing, and football's killing it every year, baseball. So they put us in the Mid-South, which is the big boys of NAIA. And from the start, when they told us it was going down and they were going to switch it over on July 1, one of the first thoughts in my head was, we've got to get better players. We've got to get some guys, because we lost some big pieces when after my first year, we had lost the best, the most winningest class in Thomas More history. So we were losing like 65% of the scoring, like 63% of the minutes, something like that. So it was going to be a major adjustment. Now, we had some big pieces coming back, but, one of the biggest things was, not only do we have to get, better players and some talent, but how are we going to convince these dudes, and have the confidence that they can win right now? Because everybody tells you, well, you're switching over, so you've got a couple years, it'll be a process. Even people with Thomas More would say that to me, and I never bought into that. And when we started recruiting at that level and started getting some guys, I thought that started the wheels turning for me, that we can do this. And the mentality of confidence, it's probably it's more about the belief, and getting your guys to believe and buy into the notion that they do belong at this level, they can compete at this level. Even the guys that signed up to play Division III for their college careers. So you've got to get those guys on par with the guys who are coming from Division II or wherever they're transferring from. I don't think it's any different than a high school coach taking over a new program that wasn't as successful. I don't think it's any different than a high school or any coach really that's trying to change the culture of their program. And Thomas More's men's basketball program was successful. It wasn't necessarily trying to change the culture, but it was trying to get them to think differently. And I think, even from year 1 to year 2, I think we had 4 or 5 returners, basically a whole new team. And I had known some of the guys prior to that, but that first step to getting those guys confident in what they're doing and getting them to believe that, they can beat the Georgetowns of the world is, they've got to trust what I'm telling them. And over my career, and I've been around a lot of really good coaches, the best way to develop relationships, player-coach relationships, I think, and there's some coaches on this thing that have been doing it a hell of a lot longer than I have, and I think they'll say the same thing, is you have to develop that relationship based on honesty. You can't blow smoke up guys' rear ends and expect them to believe you when you are telling them the truth. So as hard as it was for some guys to hear some things, I thought I shot it to them straight as I could. And over time, you hold guys accountable. You keep telling them the truth, and that bond, that relationship starts to form. So when we get down to it and we're talking about, we're going to go play the number 1 team in the country, fellas, listen to me, you can beat them, because we've developed that relationship and that trust together. They know I'm not BSing them, and I'm trying to help them, and those guys, to be honest with you, I thought we walked into that Georgetown, Kentucky gym thinking we were going to beat them. So I think it starts with some leadership as well. I talked with my team, a lot about buying in and listening to each other. And I talked to the leaders on our team more than I ever have this year. A lot of times it was bringing them in and what's the vibe down there? in the locker room. What's being said, what's being talked about, are the things that I'm saying going in one ear and out the other. I mean, and I kind of realized that we might have something when guys were telling me, positive feedback about things that I was talking about. And you'll have one or two guys in the locker room that, are saying the wrong things and doing that. But if the leadership was good, like it was this year, I think that confidence and that belief that you can do some special things will start to creep its way through the rest of the program. And I thought that's exactly what happened with us. So there was a lot of positive reinforcement. Now there was some negative as well. And listen, I'll get into a guy's rear end as good as anybody, but I think coaches, the kids are a little bit different nowadays where, every kid is not coached the same way. And I think Coach Listerman, Coach Gray will tell you that a lot of these kids, you've got to figure out, how to coach each individual kid. And for me, when we were 0-4 in the league, as George said, picked last in the league. We didn't get our first conference win until January, I think. And things aren't going well, and it's tough. You got to stick to when people telling you all over the place that you should change things. I think the constant conversation with the guys is about buying into the system, telling them this is how we're going to do things. Just keep doing them the right way, like Coach Listerman said. Just keep doing things the right way, and good things are going to happen. You've heard this before, but don't worry about the outcome. Worry about the process of getting there. And I thought as we gradually got there and we went to Pikeville, we lost by 4 at Pikeville, and I'm walking off the floor, and they were number 4 in the country, and I thought we played pretty well. I thought these guys are starting to get it a little bit. They're starting to believe that we can do it. We lost to Georgetown after that game. We were 0-4, and we finished 11-5. We didn't lose for a month and a half. And it was based around a lot of conversation. It was based around, and I'll give our guys a ton of credit. When you're 0-4, you kind of hit a fork in the road, and you can go one way or the other. And again, before every film session, there's a ton of conversation about what needs to be done. We just need to keep hammering and keep doing the same things that we've been doing, what we've been talking about, and just keep getting better at it. And something clicks. And hell, we got our rear ends handed to us by Georgetown the first time we played them, and then we go and beat them. We beat 6 ranked teams this year in our first year, and 26-7 overall. A lot of people, did not think we were going to do that quickly, and you can attribute it to some talent, and you need talent to win, and every coach knows that. But my assistants, they'll tell you just like I will that I don't think we were necessarily more talented than anybody in our league as far as the stereotypical basketball player, jumping higher, faster, stronger, all that kind of stuff. We had 5 guys average double figures. We led the country in points allowed per game. We allowed 62 points per game, which if you watched us warm up, you look at us and you look at them, you're thinking they're about to get steamrolled by 50 because, they're down there dunking and doing 360s. We're down here doing fundamental layups. And everybody in the gym thinks we're about to get steamrolled by 50. So, and listen, the biggest thing that I saw was the trust with the team. The leadership was so good, and it started to permeate throughout the rest of the team. And I saw a lot of confidence before games, man. Everybody was going out there thinking we were going to win when we had probably no business winning. So it was a special year. There's nothing better than beating the number 1 team in the country and going out of the locker room and going nuts. So, I'd say that really a lot of these things that I do every year, the thing that I think I did differently this year than most years, I paid more attention to the leaders on the team and made sure that the message was clear, the goals were clear, and then that permeated down to the other guys. And I think when you've got a culture and you've got guys who just care about winning, and you can get other guys to think that way as well, you've got something special. So I think that's what happened with us. We lost one senior, so we've got everybody coming back. Obviously, the expectations are a little higher, but good things coming for Thomas More basketball.
That's awesome, Coach. Once again, congrats on an amazing year, and you guys. It sounds like to me, I love the amount of times that you've said how important communication is to you and honesty and everything. And my question to you is too: is there anything like when you're out recruiting kids? I know it's kind of tough to see who they truly are through just the basketball games and everything. But is there anything that you look for when you're recruiting a kid? And can you see the communication on the floor? I mean, you can see some of that as well too, but is there anything that you look for specifically that is maybe part of your program or non-negotiable in your program that is, hey, I love this kid because this, not because he can jump the highest, run the fastest, because he will bring this to our program. Is there anything certain that you look for like that?
Well, I think the biggest thing that stands out, and this is probably, me being a disciple of Toby Kerrigan, but he loves guys that play just really hard. Even when the game's not going well for them, they play really hard. You walk in, and before you look at the score, you can't tell by looking at the kid whether they're winning or losing. I think that's a big piece is to be even keel and to play hard all the time, no matter what's going on in the game. I think that's really important to us. I would say that we were probably, we had guys who could score, but as far as, guys who could just break guys down off the bounce and do all that kind of stuff and just wow you athletically like that wasn't us. I think we had a collection of guys that played really, really hard and played together. And all these guys that, I watched all of them in high school, and I know their high school programs. I think that's a big thing is guys that just, regardless of what's going on, they play really, really hard. I mean, you talk to different coaches. I mean, I always think that, I can't teach a guy necessarily how to shoot it. I can give him a little pointer here and there, but offensively, I think that's important that guys can shoot it, guys can score, especially in our system. Defensively, guys like Coach Kerrigan, Coach Listerman will tell you this. Coach Kerrigan's a defensive lunatic, so he's big on the guy guarding where I can teach you to play a little bit of D. I can't teach you how to score, man. So, that kind of stuff. And then we were watching a kid, myself, Coach Burlekamp, Spencer Burlekamp. We were watching a kid earlier this year who could really fill it up. He was really good. And the more I watched him, I never saw his team win, which, you could say is unfair. It's not his fault. He's not on a good team, but the kid's not used to winning. And then, he would do his own thing, and I would see the conversations with him and the coach. And I always walked out of the gym, started thinking, man, that guy's a me guy. Like I'm not real interested in guys that are concerned with getting theirs and guys that want to look at the stat sheet after every game. Like I know guys want to score, even guys on our team want to score and do all that kind of stuff. But, the most important thing, did we win or did we lose? And did we play as good as we could?
Coach, you kind of just hit on this. You guys ranked first in the NAI Mid-South Conference in defense per game with 62 points. Is there any sort of mental aspects that you really drilled home every day? I know you disciple of Coach Kerrigan with defense and whatnot, but what are some things you did every day at practice to really drill into them how important defense was to your culture?
I think the foundation, if you're talking X's and O's, the foundation of every good defensive team is the ability to stay in front of the ball. rebounding, guarding screens, closing out, like all that stuff is secondary to guarding the basketball. So we call it, like a lot of coaches do, if you can guard your yard and nobody has to help you, we got a pretty good chance. And this year, we had a lot of guys who surprised us with how well they were able to stay in front of guys and, make them score over top and not give them a free look to the basket. So as far as mentality goes, I mean, we preach every single day. The number one thing defensively, the togetherness defensively is no different than what it's got to be offensively. We ran a lot of matchup zone, which I think is harder than man-to-man, especially to teach, because I can't show you every single scenario that's going to happen. Sometimes you just got to figure it out. So those guys have got to be tuned in, and the communication's got to be at a high level. And last but not least, if you don't have a lot of physical and mental toughness defensively, like, you don't have a chance, especially, at the college level. I don't care if it's Division I, II, III, NAIA. Man, you've got to be able to fight through being tired and be disciplined enough to communicate when you're tired, be disciplined enough to stay in a stance when you're tired, to be disciplined enough to know who you're closing out to, if the guy's a driver or shooter, like that kind of stuff is something that we talk about every single day.
Hey, Coach, I got one more question for you, too. We actually kind of asked this to other coaches in white with the reading books, but is there anything that you do, whether it's through reading, any other ways for you to continue to learn and grow as a coach?
What's helped me, and it's probably because I might be the youngest guy in this chat right now, but man, I steal a ton of stuff off of Twitter, Instagram, X's and O's, YouTube videos, coaches talking. I'm a thief. I text that stuff to myself almost daily and show it to our guys. We ran a ton of sets this year that I stole off of Twitter. I mean, I'm a giant thief when it comes to that kind of stuff. My assistants will text me stuff that they see on Twitter and that kind of stuff, and then we'll talk about it and see if we want to put it in or something like that. But I'm not as old school, just reading books all day long. I'm sitting there staring at my phone like the rest of the kids, trying to look at Twitter and trying to get smarter that way. But that's worked for us, and there's so much content on there that it's been really helpful for me. And all the college guys, we've got synergy, so I'm always watching that stuff. We run a hybrid Princeton. There are Huntsville, Alabama, Lenny Acuff, Nebraska Wesleyan, Richmond, Northwestern. I mean, they used to run a bunch, but I'm constantly just watching all these other coaches that run similar actions to us to see how we can get better and see what else I can steal. So all coaches are thieves. I'm a digital thief.
That's good stuff, Coach. We appreciate it again, you being here tonight, and congrats on a great year. And it's terrible it was cut short for you, but hopefully you guys can build off that and keep the momentum going. So good luck.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys letting me be in on this and listen to these other great coaches, and hopefully I can do it again.
Yeah. Thanks again, Coach.
Thanks.
Again, a few reminders as you're joining us, and everybody's done a great job. Appreciate your cooperation with everything, muting the videos and whatnot. If you have any sort of questions for anybody, feel free to send us a chat. You can also send us an email, and we can reach out to these guys later too. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions. So if we have any players or parents viewing tonight, we do offer skill work sessions when gyms are open, and we do. We've held a camp in the past as well, and we have a mental component of the camp in our workouts. Of course, we think skill development is important. That's the major focus of those, but we do have a mental component, and those are a lot of fun. We've gotten, again, great feedback. So see our website for more information. Our next coach is our first guest that is not a basketball coach, and again, I think a lot of this transcends even athletics, but we can certainly learn from other sports, and baseball is a great one just because of all the failure that's experienced in it with different rules it has. So I'm going to let George introduce our next speaker.
So yeah, we saved our best one for last one, right, Coach?
I got to unmute him,
Can you
so
hear me?
he's probably freaking out right now. It's not your fault, Coach. It's me.
Can you hear me, Coach?
There he goes.
There we go.
There you go.
No, you definitely didn't save the best for last. I can tell you that. These guys are amazing.
Hey, we're happy to have you here, Coach. Hey, a couple things here. I want to introduce. This is Kevin Gray. He's the varsity baseball coach at Beechwood. He was previously freshman coach at Newcastle for a little while, then varsity coach at Ludlow, and then now he's the varsity coach, like I said, at Beechwood. He's also coached multiple sports. I've actually known Kevin when I was younger playing basketball as well too. He coached me for a summer, a little bit in basketball as well too, and so he's coached a few sports. Just a little bit about what he's done at Beechwood. Already he's done a great job in his first couple of years. He's already won a regional championship, and he also got the state coach of the year in Kentucky. And just in 2 years he's already done, those two things. And like I said, I've known Kevin for a long time, and I've always just admired more than anything about him is his toughness. He's as tough as nails, and I think his teams kind of show that as well too. And not only are they tough, but you can tell that he cares about his kids, and he's always done a great job connecting to his kids, and you can tell that they care about him, and he cares. They care about him, and he cares about them, and so we're more than happy to have you here, Coach, and thanks for coming, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks for the kind words, George. First of all, you're way too kind. But I just want to thank Kenny and George for this opportunity. I've really enjoyed listening to these other speakers. Unfortunately, it was only 15 minutes or so. I could listen to these guys all night, because I'll tell you, man, you learn something at these things. Every time you listen to people talk, or you go to clinics or whatever. You're always learning something. But tonight I want to talk a little bit about the mental part of baseball. And the game of failure. A lot of people say the game of failure. When you hear experts talk about baseball, they'll say 80 to 90% of it is mental, which is probably true. And you can have the best arm, strongest arm, best footwork, speed, but you have to be mentally tough to handle adversity and failure in the game, because there's just so much of it. And I believe, and my staff believes, we practice it not as much as we probably need to, but once we start February 15th, then we're basically working on bunting situations and hit and runs and everything that you need to work on. But we try to do drills early on in preseason. We'll start with asking them, how are you going to handle failure? How are you going to handle adversity? When you're up with bases loaded and 2 outs and you strike out looking, how are you going to react? We work on how we take the field, how we come off the field, how we go back to the dugout after striking out. We work on touching first base. The one thing that drives me crazy is when a kid will hit if they hit a one hopper to the pitcher and they just take 5 steps and then they think they can go into the dugout. Well, they learn pretty quick that we don't do that. You run all the way through first, you have no idea what's going to happen. How many times have you seen a ball thrown away from, the pitcher to the first baseman? So we work on that part of the mental game where, we tell them when we sprint on and off, it doesn't matter if you had 3 errors that inning or, you struck out, bases loaded or whatever, you have to take the field the same way. And you have to leave all that, you have to leave your at bat in the dugout. You can't take it out to the field with you, and same thing in the field. If you have a bad inning, errors, whatever, you can't take that, because how many times you watched the game and you saw, the guy that made 2 errors lead is one of the first 3 batters of the next inning. And if he pouts and mopes around, he's not going to be successful at the plate. The same as he takes his at bat to the field. The first ball is going to be hit to him and he's going to boot it. You can guarantee that. But, the one thing people talk about in baseball is, batting averages, because when you think about if you bat 400 at any level, major leagues down to high school, you're pretty good hitter. Any other sport, you're 4 for 10. Like I know Coach Ray and Coach Listerman will agree. They'll take a 4 for 10 3-point shooter, 40% 3-point shooter. But anybody else, if you turn the ball over 4 out of 10 times, you're probably not going to be in there very long. And if you in football, quarterback, if he's 4 for 10 every time, if you're a bowler and you're 4 for 10, you're just not very good. So I looked up these stats. In my opinion, the 2 best hitters I've seen since I was a kid. Rose, I was shocked at this, but Pete Rose's lifetime batting average was only 303, and Tony Gwynn's was 358. So when you think about that, it's like Pete Rose got out 70 out of 100 times, and Tony Gwynn got out 65 out of 100 times. So you can't react to every time you fail at the plate, or your production is going to go way down. And we just try to teach that to our kids, and believe me, I get on them when I have to, but kid stands there and takes a 3rd strike with bases loaded in 2 outs, and you're like, swing the bat, or whatever. But it's like that you can't get on them too much, because then they got to go play defense, and you got to make sure that they're ready to play. We just stress like the lower your mental game is, then the less production that you're going to have as a player. And I think all of us have coached here, and we've all said this before a game. You've looked at your assistants and said, we don't look like we're ready to play tonight. And I think we've all said that. And in short, I mean, we're not mentally ready to play tonight for whatever reason. In high school wise, and I think, football, you play 1 game a week. So it's a little easier for those guys to be mentally focused for that 1 2-hour game than it is for, these guys, basketball coaches, or baseball. Basketball, you're playing 3-4 times a week. Baseball, you're playing, 4 or 5, maybe 5 times in that week, where, it gets a little tougher for those guys to, stay mentally ready to play and game in and day out. But the good thing about baseball is if you have a bad game on Monday, more than likely you've got, Tuesday you can make up for it. You got the next day. It's not like football where you got to wait 7 days to redeem yourself. So, there's just so much baseball wise, it's just mentality is just, to me, is huge, because there's so much failure, errors, even in a bat where you need to get a bunt down and you don't get a bunt down, because that's one of my biggest pet peeves is get the bunt down, get the runners over, do your job. But there's just, pitcher with walks and wild pitches, and we stress to our pitchers, they have to have, when they're on the mound, if the shortstop has 3 errors in 1 inning, you see it all the time. You'll see a pitcher out there shaking his head or, whatever, and you just can't do that. And the same with the shortstop or the fielders. If the pitcher has a struggle and throwing strikes, you really got to get behind them. You can't get on them. You got to get behind them and mentally keep that guy in the game. But we try to stress to the pitchers, you have to have a poker face. You can't let your opponent or the fans or your dad yelling at you in the stands or, an umpire giving you some bad calls, you can't let that bother you. If I tell them all the time, when a scout walks into the field to watch you, and especially if you're on the mound, he should have no idea if you're winning or losing that game. I think Coach Ray touched on that before. because really, I mean, pitching is, concentration and focus. You're throwing the ball as hard as you can throw it and trying to hit one little spot, or throwing a curveball or knuckleball. You're trying to hit that one little spot. So, the thing with them is we tell them poker face. You shouldn't know if, they don't understand this probably. Some of them do, but I say, you shouldn't know if I have a pocket aces or a deuce seven, that because my face shouldn't change. Same way on down. And, pitchers have different ways of preparing for games. That's the one thing that's weird about it is, some of them like the rap music playing, blaring in their ears, and some of them like, to be quiet off to themselves. But once their prep time is up in the bullpen and then they're ready to take the mound, they've really gotta be ready to take the mound and be mentally ready, for as long as they're going to be out there. For hitters, I'd say that's probably, the most mental part, because you're up to the plate and it's basically a one-on-one challenge between you and that pitcher. It's a team game, but there's also, that's the one-on-one between the pitcher and the batter. We try to get our guys to go into a routine before they get in the box. That way, help with them being mentally ready to get in the box, and have confidence that they're going to do good. Obviously baseball is a weird game. I mean, some days you look like, the greatest thing ever, and the next day you're not very good. But we tell them, bad games and slumps are going to happen. You just got to stay confident, and you got to stay mentally, strong. You can't get too down if you start to go into that slump. But we just really stress you can't let something affect you. You can't let a bad at bat affect you to the field, and you can't let what happens on the field defensively affect you going, to the plate. So there's just, and then, even with the defenses, there's tons of, ways you can fail. They're offensively pitching, and then even late, your subs, you got to be mentally ready if you're a relief pitcher to come in and close the door, or, do your job when you're in there to hold them down. And then if you have, a late game defensive substitution, that guy's got to be mentally ready to, do his job on defense. And then pinch hitters, you're going to have guys that maybe somebody's struggling and you need somebody to come up there and get a big hit. He's got to be, if he's not prepared and mentally ready, then he's probably not going to come through. But, my ending here, to me, baseball is mental. It's a mentally tough game. You got to handle a ton of adversity. You can't let little things bother you. And this is why I think, sports in general, I tell these kids all the time, this is so much more than just coaching baseball. And I know you guys feel the same way that are coaches. It's, relationships, and it's teaching them life lessons where, you're going to fail in life. You're going to have curveballs thrown at you. We've all had them, and it's just how you react to and how you build from it, and, to stay mentally tough. So that's about all I got.
Love it, Coach. I know it was funny. You just said at the very end, everybody's heard the phrase "life throws you a curveball," and being a baseball coach, and like your whole speech there was just about handling that curveball and stuff in the correct way. And one of the things I want you to kind of touch on here is there, I know you talk about a lot of, how you talk to the kids, you coaches talk to the kids. Is there anything that when you guys, because baseball, it's great, especially in the high school atmosphere of the benches, cheering for their teammates and making that a priority and everything. Is there anything that you guys talk about, that you require, I don't know, even say require your teammates to do who are not involved in that specific moment of the game to, or stay engaged, cheer on their teammates? What does that conversation look like between you and your team?
Well, I'm big on rooting for us. I'm not big on the guys and teams that allow, stuff to be said to the other teams. We don't allow that. If I'm coaching third, they know my whistle. So if I whistle and they'll all look down, they know that, I'll be like this, like, let's go talk it up. But guys on the bench, we a lot of guys, like our relief pitchers will be doing stats. And so, and I'll tell them, you don't know. We try to tell them if they're going to be pitched that day, but sometimes you just don't know how the game goes. But they'll keep stats, and then they'll also keep notes to themselves. Okay, how do we get this kid out? Does he struggle with an off-speed curve? Does he struggle with a high heat? Whatever it is. And then at the end of every inning, we have them run down to the foul pole and back just to keep the blood flowing, keep them into the game some, and just, we're always talking, and I tell those guys too, if you see something that we don't see, say something to us. And we have kids, coach, this guy hit the ball down third base line the last 2 times. Maybe we should move the third baseman over. And, a lot of times we'll move him over and, just stuff like that we try to stay in communication with everybody. And I got enough coaches on the bench to where we can, I think we do a pretty good job of that, keeping them in the game.
It sounds to me like you really reinforce a lot of details. I mean, you're practicing taking the field, running off the field, how they run the first base, taking notes on individual batters, which has seen a lot of success. What are some other things that has kind of differentiated maybe some of your more elite players? You've had a lot of high-level players come out of Beechwood the last couple of years. Is there anything else that differentiates your program, you think, and some of the success that your kids have seen in your teams?
I'll tell you, man, the last couple of years with, last year we had Castleman and Odom and Dover Spikes at Thomas More. Just the work ethic, I think, is the one thing with those guys. I know there was a couple kids struggling the one game, and we had a few games in a row, and I told them all, tomorrow I don't want you doing anything baseball-wise. I want you to just go home. If you play Fortnite or whatever you guys do, just go home and do it. I don't care what you do, no baseball. And, I hear Castleman grab the other 2 guys that, 2 guys that were struggling pretty bad. And he's like, meet me in the cage tomorrow in the barn and, we're going to work. And I was like, I said, Logan, I don't want you guys doing anything. He's like, Coach, I don't take no days off. So, he's going to the right state. So obviously he's a hardworking kid. He was just, like Coach Ray said, you got to have good talent to obviously to win. And, the last couple of years we've had good talent, and same thing with, Jeremy at Highlands. I mean, he won region 4 years in a row. So, last year everybody talked about us and them, and it was, it ended up being us, and, luckily we held on at the end. But, like Coach Ray said too, I know this is going off subject a little bit, but I'm a thief too. I mean, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. I mean, if it's a baseball, something baseball wise, and I still, from coaching high school basketball, I still go on there and send stuff to, basketball coach friends of mine and stuff. But I steal everything. I'll send drills to the coaches and say, I'm older than you guys, so I'll probably forget these. So save these in your phone. So, but it's, I love it. I'm not you guys were talking about reading books. I've never in my life liked to read, but I love going to coaching clinics. I love going on YouTube. I wish I loved to read. My wife loves to read, but I just never have gotten into it. But, that I love going to the ABC conventions, and, you got a whole day of speakers in hours. My wife always says that's like torture, but I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Tonight, just hearing these 3 guys was amazing, to me.
Yeah.
I respect, these 2 guys I've watched, obviously, followed Coach Listerman for a long time and knew his dad. My wife, he actually taught my wife, so she always talks about it. She loves him. But, I just, these kind of things, like I said, I appreciate you guys asking me to be part of this. And, it was awesome.
Yeah, we appreciate it too, Coach. Thanks for being part of it. And I think the commonality here of everybody involved is that we all want to learn. And I think that's really what separates people who are successful and aren't. So that's all I have. George, you got anything else? Again, thanks, Coach Gray. Thanks again to all our speakers, Coach Ray and Coach Listerman. I know Dr. Burton had to leave, but I really appreciate your time, and everybody who's still listening right now too. We really appreciate you being here. We hope you were able to gain some value from this and, like we said, learn a little bit. So, George, you got anything?
No, I'd just say if anybody does have any questions for us, for the coaches who are speaking, just let us know. And we're on Facebook. Like us on Facebook. We're on Twitter, Instagram. We're most active on Facebook and Twitter for sure. So just let us know. And Kenny mentioned a few times, if you got a kid who's interested in getting some basketball workouts in when gyms do open back up, happy to work some kids out. And the team sessions that Kenny and I do, and we love it. It's a lot of fun, and every team that we've done it for, they've gotten a lot out of it. So they say, and they really enjoy it. So we appreciate you all listening.
I'm definitely interested in the team session when we get back at it. So we'll stay in touch.
Appreciate it, Coach. Thanks.
Thanks, Coach. Yeah, thanks all the coaches for being here. We really apprciate it.
All right, thanks everybody. Stay well, and good luck with everything.
Stay safe.
See you.
See you, boys.
See you.